Welcome back, guys. Or if you're new to my channel, this is Automotive Anonymous. That's my brand new Toyota Rav4, and as of filming this today, I've actually had it for about a week now. I sold my Outback Wilderness, which I owned for 3 years. I've already realized some pretty big surprises after going back to Toyota, which I haven't done to Toyota since 2019. So today I'm going to share a lot of what I've learned in the first week, and if I can or cannot recommend this to you, and what regrets do I have, or maybe there aren't very many. So let's get right into it, and if you guys get anything out of this video, please consider liking it, comment your thoughts and opinions below, and subscribe if you haven't already. Otherwise, what are my regrets? What are my main thoughts? Well, let's start with the good. After a week and almost 500 miles of owning this vehicle, it's getting about 40 to 44 miles per gallon around town. And at interstate speed, not quite as many. It's in the low 30s, like 32 to 34. So still much better than the Subaru I came from. Around town is really where these shine and where the electric motors can help you drive even up to speeds of 25 to 35 miles per hour, depending on the slope of the grade, how hard you're pushing the accelerator pedal, and how much battery or how much juice is in the battery. So that is pretty cool. I did get this from the Peterson Automotive Group, which I believe is the biggest, highest volume selling dealership in the state of Idaho. So they gave me a really good deal. They get a lot of these in, and these are assembled in Japan, in Canada, and the United States. Mine just so happens to be a Japanese-built model, which I'm ecstatic about. And then I have tint on the front. The factory is standard. It's just the basic, probably 20 to 25%. The front is 35% because I know some of you guys will be asking. And I did have it done at the Tint Lady & Son, which is one of the best companies in the nation for tinting your windows. I'll link them below if you're interested, because in Southern Idaho, you reference my video and you'll get a really big discount, and they do phenomenal work. To get the front windows done on this took literally 17 minutes, which I can't thank them enough for that. But overall, how has the ownership experience been in the first week? How does it compare to the Subaru? Where are the shortcomings? There's a lot to talk about. And while I'm used to driving a lot of different vehicles, and my Subaru really didn't have a lot of gimmicks for how many advanced features it had, I have noticed that this vehicle, being more on the boring category, more of the no-nonsense category, it's really no surprise why these age so well. There's just not a lot to go wrong, and there's a lot of things that Toyota did right, and this is still kind of their old school mantra of kind of being a boring, blending in, reliable car. Sure, these do look more aggressive, and I really think mine with the black accents and the black 18-inch wheels and this SE trim level, I actually do think it looks pretty good. But on the interior, having physical gauges, physical climate controls, even not having a completely digital setup for the instrument cluster, it just is really nice that a lot of this stuff is going to age well, and it's not going to be out of date in just a couple years. One of the other things that has been really enjoyable to get to experience is just the hybrid system. Obviously, Toyota owns the hybrid market. They weren't necessarily the first one to create the hybrid system. I know there were some battery-powered vehicles in the 90s, but they were really isolated one-off examples. And I think the most mainstream one about 30-some years ago was the Honda Insight, I think it was. I'll overlay on the screen what it actually was if I'm getting that wrong. But Toyota knows how to make a hybrid system, and they do it quite well. And something you guys might not know if you are considering the hybrid RAV4 compared to the regular RAV4, which about 2/3 of the 400,000 RAV4s sold every year in North America's market, or I should say the United States market, is the non-hybrid. So surprisingly, only apparently 1 in 3 of these actually are the hybrid, but the hybrids seem to be more reliable. The eCVT, which isn't really a CVT, it's mostly electronic. It has physical gears. Some people don't even change their CVT oil, and they've driven up to 400,000 miles or more on these. If you guys want to read the forums, you guys can find this for yourself. But the transmissions are bulletproof. Meanwhile, the 8 speeds in the regular RAV4s, a few of those have had issues, just like the longitudinally mounted rear-wheel drive Focus Tacomas with the 8-speed for this new generation have also had issues. But this engine, it's an Atkinson cycle engine. It has direct and port injection, so it's not going to get clogged up valves on the back of the intake and eventually cause problems that you need to clean it. It cleans itself. It also doesn't have a serpentine belt. It doesn't have a lot of the accessories on this front side of the engine that you're going to have to worry about changing and maintaining. There's no starter. There's no alternator, no serpentine belt again. It has a heat pump instead of an AC compressor. So a lot of what you see under the hood is just the basic engine. And if you really look close, the induction manifold right there, the exhaust manifold on the other side, you actually can really easily identify a lot of the things. The reservoirs are throughout on the periphery, another fuse box, induction, and the battery components. but it's actually a pretty simple engine, and 219 horsepower, even at the elevation and the altitude that I'm at, really propels this thing quite well. Slight brake rev, a little bit of wheel spin. It does like a 7.5 second 0 to 60, which, just for reference, just the other day, I drove a brand new Camaro SS with the V8. That thing did like a mid-5 because it was traction limited. This thing is not, but this does pretty good at elevation compared to a lot of other vehicles for only having 219 horsepower. I'm gonna share a trick with you guys. Something that is the same technology on my Subaru is this is the key, which I actually really like that on the back it says which model you have. But something worth mentioning is if you wanna deactivate the key, hold the lock button and double press the unlock button. I'm gonna have to do it off camera, so I'll do that right now. You'll see that it's flashing a few times. We're gonna stick that back in my pocket, and now the key should not register. But one of the big disappointments I have with this vehicle is the remote start system. You can actually get a year for free through the app, and that's pretty cool, right? But when you try to use it, the car starts up like it should, but when you open the door, the vehicle shuts off right away. This is not new for Toyotas. This is how they've been doing it for a long time, and it's a very frustrating system. I've used the remote start system on a lot of GM products through the key. I've used it a lot on our Subarus. They don't shut off. I'm sure it's an anti-theft, feature, but none of those other vehicles are getting stolen. Why can't Toyota figure that out? It doesn't necessarily feel like it's a lot of extra wear and tear on the vehicle, one unnecessary start and stop, but it is kind of frustrating. As soon as you try to pull on the handle, the engine shuts off. So I just fired it right up, and it is in EV mode, as you guys can tell by the EV icon up there, which means I'm in power mode. So if I use the button right here to go through, you can see I have a pretty full battery right now. I'm assuming it's about 1 kilowatt. It usually lets you go about a mile or so before the engine would engage. But I'm just gonna do a quick U-turn to give you guys a different viewing experience on the RAV4 as we go through this video. I do have noise cancellation on my microphone, so you guys might not be able to hear it the best, and for that, I do apologize. But it does do a full circle in 36 feet. It's pretty agile. It handles like a lot of the other compact crossovers, and the steering is not as sensitive as the Subaru, which I love. That thing you barely move the wheel, and you're completely changing direction. So it is nice that this is a little bit more numb. But what I have noticed is the safety features, which this is Toyota Safety Sense 2.5, is overall they're not quite as competent as the Subaru. Even mine with only the 3rd gen eyesight system, the blind spot monitoring, those sensors work about equally well. The adaptive cruise seems to work pretty good, but you don't have as much control over the distancing that you do in one of those vehicles. But the big thing, the thing that I actually don't like that barely seems to do its job on this one, is the lane keep assist. It basically lets you go to the line. Sometimes it doesn't bounce you back, and it's very subtle. Sometimes it beeps at you, sometimes it does not. It really just depends, and it's not necessarily exactly as consistent as the Subaru was when you knew that that system was engaged. So it is kind of unfortunate. I wish the lane keep assist was better, but I am thankful that you don't wander out of your lane quite as much because the steering isn't as sensitive. And it's certainly not a system that's strong enough that it's actually going to bounce you back across the other lane, which is something that the Subarus can do about 1% of the time. So you need to be careful with all these systems. They are assisted systems. They're not hands-free systems, of course. And then the last thing to mention about this is there are a few different varieties of tires that come on these from the factory, or at least across all the trim levels. Between the non-hybrid, the hybrid, and the prime, mine specifically has the Duratec PT20, which seems to have about 9/32 of tread depth. It's obviously kind of an economy, good MPG focused all season tire, but a lot of what I read on the forums is that they don't necessarily last super long, and they don't do super well in the winter, especially on snow and ice, and when you really get into low conditions. Also, I have read on the forums, the tires and the rubber that, creates these tires, each batch of rubber for the tires could be completely different. That's why when you do buy different tires, you always want to make sure that they do have a tire warranty. And that's also why sometimes one tire will wear so much faster than the others. It's not necessarily just from the weight distribution of the vehicle, but it could also be from the quality and the compound of the rubber. But these, I'm not sure if I'll be keeping them very long. I definitely do want to do some testing for you guys and how they do in the snow and the winter. Keep in mind, my Outback had Geolander all-terrains that were severe weather rated. So this has a lot to live up to, and I'm thinking I might swap this out for a Yokohama Geolander as well, or maybe the Falcon Wild Peak or something else soon. I'm also pretty interested in swapping out the wheel for a 16-inch lightweight wheel to gain about 2 more inches of sidewall. That would go from this 225 60 18 to 225 70 16. I think that would look really cool. It would definitely identify this compared to other RAV4s on the road, because again, there are 500,000 of these produced every year, but that is going to be a big expense. We'll see. I really just want to test these first, and I'm kind of conflicted because I do like the Toyota wheels, but from what I can find online without taking the wheel off to weigh it myself, which I should probably just do, is the wheel weighs about 29 or 30 pounds and the rim weighs about 29 or 30 pounds. So it's about a 60-pound per corner of rotational mass. Whereas if I do the 16-inch wheel setup I've been looking at, that would drop each corner to 45 pounds. And I think that would be a substantial difference, in addition to having a much more capable, competent wheel and tire. All right, guys, fine. There's one more thing I want to share. And I don't mean to bore any of you guys who have seen my other RAV4 videos, but there's about 50% new audience in each one. So I do want to mention that these doors do not open as wide as I was expecting them to. They do not open as wide as Mazda or Subaru doors, which can become a problem. This is full open. And then because it is smaller than the Outback, being a compact crossover versus a midsize, there's not as much room for child safety seats. And also, when you do have the seats folded down, there is a little bit more of an incline than there is on the Subaru. So it's still totally doable, but just know that there is a difference in convenience when you have to have the door completely open and you're, holding a big child seat or whatever it is and you're getting it in and out. There's less room on this than there are on some of the other compact crossovers. Anyways, guys, after 1 week and almost 500 miles of ownership of Toyota RAV4, it actually feels pretty good to be back in a Toyota. I know I've kind of been disappointed in the company recently because of reliability going down the drain with the turbo trucks and stuff, but this is one of the last really good vehicles. I'm glad that this is going to be around for the 2025 model year, and it won't be until at least next year when this is redesigned. I love the bulletproof powertrain, the A25A with the hybrid system. It sure seems to be extremely reliable. This is the best-selling crossover for a reason. I'm super excited to find out why that is and how does it compare to Subarus, which I've owned for the last 5 years. And I'm excited to share all of this with you guys. But I want to know your thoughts and your opinions, and with how often you see RAV4s, with how many people have owned them. Please comment your stories with them before. Both good and bad, just be honest. Let's get as much information in the common thread of this as we can. And I wish you guys the best. Thank you so much for watching. If you're still listening, like this video, subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, take care, guys.